afternoon, it is Christine here, and yesterday evening I was watching some YouTube videos, catching up with some of my favourite channels, and I was watching a video by Leanne from Leanne's Crafty Cupboard, and she was trialling a technique, the first time for her, of transferring the colours and shapes of flowers and leaves onto fabric. And it's a technique where you basically just pound the leaves and the flowers while they're enclosed between two layers of fabric, and you get these amazing imprints. And so Leanne had seen the technique from another lady on YouTube, Marion from Marion's World. Now I'll link to both Leanne and to Marion and their videos in the description below, so be sure to check them out and go over and give them some YouTube love. And I was just super inspired by watching Leanne's video, and I just knew I had to give it a go. So I got my chores out of the way today, and I was like, yep, down into the garden. Let's see what's flowering. Let's see what interesting leaf shapes there are. Let's come back and have a play, and then let's show you the results of the experiment. I figured you didn't really need to see me bashing away with my sort of hammer or that plastic, I think they're called, are they a mallet? When I say it, it sometimes sounds like mullet, which is a totally different, a fish or a very bad haircut. But basically it looks like this. This is quite well worn. I said, Alex, can I borrow your mallet? And he said, what are you doing? I said, just doing some eco dyeing. And he went, okay, I'm off. So he's gone out. And so I'm using some beautiful silk offcuts that I got from Silk and Stitch, which is a Melbourne bridal supplier who creates these incredible remnant offcut boxes where you can get amazing fabrics like these amazing silks for just covering the cost that it takes basically for them to put the boxes together. So it's incredible. I'll post a link to Silk and Stitch below. I know a lot of my viewers have already indulged, but if you haven't heard of them and you do want to get yourself some lovely silk to work with, because silk can be super expensive, but this is a great way to get offcuts, and they're the perfect size to use for doing experiments, but you get bigger pieces in the boxes as well. What I'm using here is actually what were the smaller pieces, which I've even then cut down further to size. And I've only used a tiny portion of what I got. So the technique, I believe, comes from Japan, and I think it's called Hapazome. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but it's basically an eco-dyeing flower pounding or leaf pounding technique. And so it has said in the descriptions I've read that sometimes the colours will fade over time, but that is actually part of the intended process, in that it will, you're sort of layering fabrics over time. And I believe in Japan, they may actually, for example, with a silk scarf, they'll make imprints each season. So you get the layered colouring, and as one colour fades, another colour comes and takes its place. So how beautiful is that? So if I do find some of these fade, I guess I can continue printing over the top of them. I found some really interesting things in my experiment, including one leaf that prints as red and then changes to a green, and I'm not even sure what colour it's going to dry, so I'll show you that one as well, because that's pretty interesting. So I think that's all I need to tell you by introduction. So let's have a look at some of the examples that I've created, and then I will also show you just one round of me doing the pounding, because as I say, I don't think you need to listen to me hammering away for an hour, but I'll show you the results, and then we'll do a little bit of flower pounding, leaf pounding together. So one of my favourite results is the cosmos. So these are, and normally cosmos would have stopped flowering by now in the winter garden, but mine's still going away. It's very, very confused. I found the white flowers didn't work because obviously they don't really have much colour to transfer, so I guess that makes sense. But the pinks just look so, so lovely. They've definitely faded a bit in colour since I actually printed them, probably sort of half an hour ago, because they're fully dried. But yeah, that's with their centres left in them, which, as you can see from the flowers, is yellow. And so for this one, I left the flower whole, so you get that sort of that center marking. For this one, I actually just removed the petals and arranged them so they were just pointing around the center. So that's why it doesn't have that darker colouring in the middle. So I'll keep my Cosmos here because we'll use some of those when we do our little sample one soon. And then here I just printed 2 of the leaves, and this is basically where you're folding it over, and so you get 2 prints for the price of one. That was the same with this one. So one was capturing the bottom and the other one was capturing the sort of the top or the side. And likewise with this one. So you get one that's one that's a bit more intense in colour and one that's a bit less. So I'll put those over there. Next up were the Cosmos leaves, which just gave a lovely, lovely effect. Again, this is fully dried, so I imagine these will stay this colour. And yeah, just lovely frondy effect from those. So I'll keep those leaves aside as well. And then the little pansies, or Johnny jump-ups, I think we call them. So they particularly worked well on the front side because you even get that lovely little amount of yellow coming. Now it is worth with the flowers, just picking them pretty close to when you plan to use them, because the flowers do start to kind of, dry up and shrivel a little bit if they're left too long. But that is just so beautiful. You would think that's an actual proper sort of like painted print on a fabric rather than actually just having printed the flower. How cool is that? How cool is nature? And those colours, those colours are held within it, and then it actually releases it through this process. Just amazing. So we'll print some of those. Then I think Leanne showed this in her video. She did some lemon balm. I think your leaves might have been a bit bigger, Leanne. So they were quite vibrant green when I printed them. They're now a sort of a more muted colour, but I do love the leaf structure, particularly in this one that's not printed as in depth. In fact, I actually like both of them, but I just love that that's almost got that leaf skeleton effect on it. So that's very cool. So we can keep those possibly out. Then I had some fennel fronds, and you could probably use dill if you had that as well. And I just love the effect of this. It reminds me of seaweed, so it'd be great for an underwater scene. And again, I just folded that over, so that's just the mirror reflection, I guess, of the fennel. So that's great. I'll keep a bit of that out. Then we had some Vietnamese mint. So I do like that, and it has a lovely smell to it. I love the smell of Vietnamese mint. I love when I'm watering the garden or doing some work down in the garden and I brush past it and it sort of fills the air. So I definitely like that too. So I'll keep those aside. Then we've got some asparagus fronds. So a different colour from our fennel. Similar sort of, similar structure, but obviously the asparagus feels a little bit tougher than the fennel, and it's just a slightly darker green colour. So we'll keep those to put in our sample. This is a weed, I think it is. It's like I think we used to call them the mirror bush. They're very, very shiny. Interestingly, it only printed from the underside. The top shiny side released no colour whatsoever on the side where I'd folded it over. So that was a fascinating discovery. But I don't mind that even. At first I thought, it's a bit boring, but it's still you can still see the veins in it, and it's given a nice shape. I probably wouldn't necessarily do that one again. Let me show you another one that worked well before we get to the ones that didn't work so well. So this one, I did a few different things on it. So let's have a look one by one. So I did these little purple flowers. I've forgotten what they are called, and in fact I find I get a bit of a skin reaction from them, and it's probably worth saying with this, make sure you use flowers that you know aren't poisonous or aren't going to cause you irritation of the skin. Probably wear gloves if you do if you're not exactly sure, but it's worth using plants that you know are safe to be using, and ideally don't use a board that you use for food, and clean up properly after you've been kind of working with them. So public service announcement aside, these are the little nasturtium leaves, which have the lovely veins. They almost look like lily pads, so I like those. This is the leaf of this plant, which I can't remember what it's called either. I tried the flowers, but they just made ugly schmersches over there, so I won't be doing the flowers again. But the leaf was a nice effect, because it does have that sort of skeleton effect on it. So I might even keep that leaf aside and we can include it in our next print. But yeah, these little flowers, they came out lovely as well. And I just, picked those off one by one. I just love how it's got the little yellow centre and then the purple around it in that. So that was that one. So when you're starting out, it's probably good just like have some bits of silk or cotton that you can just do a range of prints on, or smaller pieces, while you work out what is going to work and not work. Next up, I've got the parsley seed heads. So I think they're okay. Not sure I'd do them necessarily again, but they make nice little, I guess, trees if you want to sort of simulate trees. But I might leave one of those in our little mix to print. Then leafy greens, they're always telling us to eat our leafy greens because they're full of good nutrients, and I guess you can tell that by the colours that come out from this fringed kale. So I quite like that. I'd like anything where you've got that sort of, that leaf variation. Again, they'd be nice trees if you were adding them into your stitchery. So we'll put those leaves into our mix. Now these were the interesting leaves that when you first transfer them, they are red, and some of them stay red, but then even some of the ones that start red, they actually turn to this greeny, sort of almost a khaki colour as they dry. So it was just, really interesting. And these are the young leaves from the plants. I tried one of the older, darker leaves and it didn't transfer well at all. But the younger ones, obviously they've got all this intense colour in them. But I'd love to work out why some of them still stay red and then some actually turn to green. I wonder if maybe there's different colour layers in the leaf, and depending how much you sort of beat them with the mallet, then that will influence. So we'll put those into the mix so you can have a look at those. We've then got another kale. So that's put a nice little vein pattern on it. So I'll put that over there. Now some of the ones that I don't think worked quite as well, this is a little weed. I don't think it's chickweed, I can't remember what it is. And it's okay, the design it's left on it. It's still left a few little seed heads, I think, stuck to it. But not that interesting, so I don't think that's one that I would necessarily do again. I tried a lime leaf, but it was very hard to get it to transfer out much colour, so wouldn't do one of those again. Tried a beetroot leaf because I thought that the whole leaf might give this same sort of vibrant colour, but the stem ended up putting out a really intense pink, but then the leaves were just a little bit nondescript really, so that's a not do again. But could be interesting to use the leaves in dyeing, sort of eco-dyeing with a liquid. And then this was just another of the kale practices. So put my kale leaf over there. I was really hoping the borage, and normally borage wouldn't be flowering in my garden, but again, confused garden. I was hoping the borage would work out well, these beautiful little star flowers. They are quite fragile, so they do start to close up. But even when I printed them with the green, you just got a big sort of green splodge. And when I did them without the green and without their little centre, it still wasn't that impressive. So they're going in the not to do again pile. And then this was a borage leaf that I did. That's the pounded leaf, which just didn't release that much colour again. So that's a no. Had some beautiful little, I think these are jonquils or little, are they miniature? No, jonquils I think is what they are. And they just, turned into just a smushed mess. So I'll sit those on the table rather than pounding them with the hammer. This was rosemary, which is okay, but not awesome. So I don't think that's I might keep it in our little practice example one. We might just put a few little small bits of it around, but I don't think I'll do rosemary routinely. I think this is called grape hyacinth, which is a little purple flower with lots of tiny little flowers as part of it. So they just kind of made schmershy messes, so I probably won't bother with that one again. So I did have a rather noisy arrival of Travis and Alex coming home, so I did stop the video for a moment, and I did, while it was stopped, arrange the various bits of flower and foliage so that you didn't have to watch me doing that. And so now all I'm going to do is flip over my extra piece of silk up to the top. Then I'm going to grab my hammer/mallet Okay, so I haven't probably done them as closely as I did the other ones because I was doing them en masse, but let's peel it back now and have a look at what it looks like. So you will have all the flowers all smushed and sort of stuck to the fabric, but they are pretty easy to peel off. So it's good just to have a little container or your hand, put them in. And if any of them sort of stick, you can easily get them off when they are dry. So yeah, definitely if you want to get those really sort of, I guess, more precise prints, doing them one by one on smaller or even on bigger bits of fabric, but working on them one by one definitely pays off. But this, I just wanted to see what this would look like on a big scale if we did them all at once. It's just, and so you can actually, it's not like they keep giving, well, they're probably giving out a bit of colour, but I haven't found they sort of create smudges if you're even sort of just rubbing them off with your finger like that. And so you could, I think you would have seen when I was filming it that these came out red, and then some of them are already starting to turn quite green. So it'll be interesting to see if any of them still keep their redness after a day or so. Might just give this a shake over. Actually, I'll just shake it down that way. That will work. I was going to shake it over the sink, but then I would go out of visibility of view, so I won't do that. We're just going to peel these off with our fingers, and then I'll show you the finished effect. Let's get that. Okay, give it a little shake over the bench. I'll be cleaning the bench thoroughly anyway, because this is our food bench. And so that is my winter silk with the garden that thinks it's still possibly summer or spring. But yeah, very, very happy with that. Just love the purples, the pinks, and the greens. So it will be interesting, and I will share an update, and I think Leanne's going to do the same, of just how this sort of looks as time goes on. So this will be a bit of an experiment to see before I sort of do it on a wider scale. But yeah, pretty impressed with it as a rapid technique. Sometimes I don't think I'm patient enough for the sort of longer term solar eco dyeing or other techniques. And I just love that straight away you can see, because you're watching the colours come through the back of the fabric, straight away you can see whether things are transferring or not, and where you might need to sort of hammer a little bit harder. But sometimes I even like the leaves and other prints better when they are that little bit lighter. But that's, yeah, I reckon that's pretty gorgeous. So I hope you enjoyed watching that. And as I say, definitely go over to check out Leanne at Leanne's Crafty Cupboard and Marion at Marion's World. Thanks for watching, and speak to you soon. Bye everyone.